Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series The Nature of Predators Book 2. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 44. Memory Transcription Subject. Elias Mayer, former UN Secretary General. Date Standardized Human Time, July 29, 2160. The meeting with the Leshy ambassador had paid off, as the Shield reluctantly agreed for me to take a speaking slot on a single day's agenda. Ambassador Yanni relayed the news yesterday and indicated that we'd be leaving tomorrow. Herself and Cora-chan, along with many of the Terran ambassadors, would be returning to Shield territory to advise. Presumably, it was also to keep me at bay with his Predator expertise if the worst came to pass. I was still elated to have the invitation accepted. This would be humanity's first look behind the curtain of how our sister organization operated. This was a chance to forge closer ties between us, after decades of having no direct contact with their central governing body. Kuiper and I had discussed long-term goals throughout the past week, to prepare me on what to say to further the United Nations agenda. The Arksol situation caused me to look deeper into the species kept isolated, and just how their living conditions had festered. I expressed staunch disapproval over the indefinite quarantines, especially forbidding entire species from the stars. Humanity should have learned the issue with a collective punishment. However, the Secretary-General brought up a worrisome point, that the Shield, namely the dirty insect, wanted Alpha glassed altogether. For us to get them to consider tolerating us, letting them get away scot-free, the first step would be to turn the Shield to full-fledged friends. It required undoing centuries of anti-predator dogma, so they could accept us as well-intentioned sapiens all over again. Much like with the Federation, it's about getting any voters who'll agree to a military alliance, and taking it from there. Baby steps. The galaxy still has a lot of healing to do, and I don't want humanity to turn a blind eye to those that are suffering today from the conspiracy's legacy. I hadn't decided what I would say to the Shield, and wondered just how Noah had come up with his iconic, "Maybe we could be your friends" response. To me, that was a clincher for getting a few parties to give us an honest chance. I closed my eyes, issuing yet another silent thanks for having proper eyelids, a successful surgical augment from Vernt. The Toolfish had been working at late hours of the night over the past week, seemingly obsessed with some sort of project. He hadn't left his desk even for a send-off to me, so I made it a purpose to pay him a visit. My knees gripped my throat as I noticed the insect surrounded by human brains in jars. Was this how he'd replicated the inner workings of the hominid mind? "Just here to say goodbye. I'll be leaving any minute, as soon as the Sudian diplomat arrives," I told the Terra Technologies scientist. Vernt turned around, mandibles clacking in an excited way.
"Yes, of course. I hope the adjustments have helped, Elias. You're going to be the first synthetic to act on behalf of humanity. What a long scuttle forward. We are building a concrete case for when you're inevitably address the SC about rights for all people like you. We'll even have precedent with the Shield, for them to grant you the privilege of a sapient being."
"We haven't seen how the Shield as a whole will receive me yet. Not all of the diplomats were so elated about my digital resurrection. Perhaps this will serve to get them used to the idea. I suppose I'm arguing for more than just humanity, the biological race."
"You already knew there were several factors at play, the safety of the galaxy being chief amongst them. I remember when the Arksol raided my homeworld. My mother and I narrowly escaped, thanks to human soldiers. It's a tired story, perhaps, but that's the beauty of it. I trust that you won't let us get into another war with the Greys, knowing the consequences. The Shield needs to hear that as well."
I nodded and focused on blinking. Even with eyelids, it was something I had to do manually. "Was it hard for you, Vernt, living on Earth, as a giant insect?"
"Oh yes, of course. Any time I go into public spaces, it's almost inevitable that someone freaks out at the sight of me. I wish there was a trick as simple as wearing a visor, like you can with your eyes."
"For what it's worth, I think wearing something as basic as a lab coat might work. It'd make you more human to their eyes, to draw some connection in the brain of a person rather than, scary. That's a hard perception to flip though, and I hope that it's not hurtful."
"Not at all. Marcel told us, when I was very young, that humans evolved to see us as harbingers of disease. I've studied the response quite a bit. So I do understand exactly when it originates in the brain. I thought about removing fear responses from the brain, since they're a net negative in my view, but replicating emotions is too complex to risk that.
I cleared my throat. If I can't feel all the same emotions as a human, then I'm not myself. Elias Mayer was the sum of all of his parts, the positive and the negative.
I don't disagree. You still are an Elias Mayer. The continuous experience of consciousness is the essence of personhood, in my opinion. I cannot imagine your brain knows how to make sense of the great beyond.
Death? It wasn't complicated. Dark is the absence of light, and death is the absence of life. It is simply nothing. I wish there were, others who could describe the experience, because it changes how you view everything. It's difficult being the only one of my kind and having no one to commiserate with.
That is all changing soon, the Tollfish waved a grasp in a circular motion, sweeping across different brain jaws. Look around you, Elias.
I did a double take and the human mind scattered about his office. Was Bernd trying to figure out how to straight up resurrect people just by taking their brains? Wouldn't they have rotted and lost neural connection, even if they were suspended in formaldehyde or something similar? My eyes squinted, seeing Terran names with holographic codes affixed to them. I scanned one marker, pulling up a full biological profile, which stated that this individual had died in the year 2025, or 135 years ago. I didn't understand why the Tollfish was tampering with bodies that had been laid to rest for over a century. These people couldn't have consented to this. Bernd still doesn't understand the fundamental problem with what he did to me. If Elias Mayer had been asked before his death, he wouldn't have wanted this. I shouldn't exist, and I know it.
These are the exact people who did consent, and who would want this,
Bernd responded to my internal thoughts, which earned a sour look from me.
There were individuals who were cryogenically frozen in the late 20th and early 21st century, under the hope that scientists could reverse death one day, perhaps even with just their brains. Humans who knew science could solve insurmountable obstacles with enough time. They were frozen after death, and now it's just up to me to piece the data in their minds together. Isn't that wonderful?
I paused, eyeing what I realized were cryogenic storage boxes. I faintly recalled hearing about individuals hoping death could be reversed one day. I suppose these people who hoped for this sort of technology and would want to be brought back. If they had just their minds revived, they must believe it's all that's necessary. They must have considered this to be one of the ways they could return.
Precisely. Their knowledge vitrification process could unfortunately result in damage to neural tissue, but it's most important that the areas preserving memory and personality are intact, like they are in these. I've been studying the most viable specimens and narrowed those down to ones that also have supplemental brain imaging, such as long outdated procedures as MRIs, which use gigantic machines for entire lengths of time. At any rate, artificial intelligence can use this to try and restore any damaged sections.
Bernd definitely can unload a lot of information on his topics of interest. It's nice to see someone so engaged with their line of work. I can respect the singular passion. Not everybody can emulate that, and I hope that he has others who appreciate that.
I am on the spectrum, I know you already guessed that. But thank you for not singling it out or treating me differently,
the Tollfish commented. I raised my eyebrows. One of my most helpful aides was autistic back in my original life. As a diplomat, you grow to welcome such straightforwardness and information without any slant. For what it's worth, I do think these are solid candidates. If you're moving forward with the project.
Of course I'm moving forward with it. Elias, you're a sample size of one. We can't make any sweeping judgments just from you. I want you involved with this, going forward. When you get back from your visit to the Shield, I'll have finished up a recovery work on my selected candidate. I'll bring them to life then, and we can help them through the transition together. Someone will have to aid them in adjusting to the 22nd century.
It's crazy that we can bring back people, even if it's only a few, that died in the prior century. I would be curious to know what life was like for them. It'll be souls from a different time period than our previous interlopers. At least these types might have an easier time than the Archive's captives, adjusting to the idea that they're now in the future. I'll be glad to be there and help. I'm the only one who knows what they're going through, after all. Don't forget to start them with the revisions you already made for me.
I won't forget. Your input will be the key to perfecting this for the next digital transplants. Like with any technology, it'll only improve.
It has to. The slightest imperfections, and I guarantee they'll notice. Like I still notice the utter absence of breathing. Suffocating isn't the sort of sensation that just fades into the background over time. The Sulian envoy should be here by now, so we shouldn't keep them waiting. Good luck, Vernt. Remember why you're doing this. The Tillfish waved a grasper in a rather human gesture before returning to his work, looking at the transcripts he'd pulled from the cryonic brains. Those should be quite interesting to peruse for historical value, seeing what the time period was truly like through their eyes. As intrusive as it was to view someone's life story from a single snapshot of their mind, I couldn't deny the applications that technology could have. There clearly were many sapiens who were interested in mind uploading, given what I'd heard Vern say on the call about the uptick in brain scans. If there was one privacy law I needed to lobby for, it was that memory transcripts couldn't be sold or data mined. I wish I'd seen this coming in my first lifetime and gotten ahead of it. But how could I? I ran through what I'd learned about Sulian culture to myself. Most of the current SC members weren't part of the original dozen who voted to attempt diplomacy with us. Jild was an unusual world, creating both the Sulians and the Iftalas. Aliens likely were simple for them to bond with, since they were close to a sapient species other than themselves by default. I tried to imagine how humanity would have differed if we had a non-human intelligence native to Earth, and our paths crossed throughout history. Unfortunately, I believe most Terrans from the past would have tried to conquer them rather than opening trade and living side by side as the Sulian Iftali citizens did. Tribalism had made us desapienize our own kind, though I prided myself that we'd come so far from historical atrocities. The wheel of progress turns much too slowly, as we can see from the less than desirable outcomes across the galaxy. But the important part was that it turns. I always wanted to move humanity forward, even if it was to gain a mere inches. That would have been if it was worth any sacrifice to me. The Sulian reared back on two legs, waving a hoof at me. "Hello, over there!" I donned a cautious smile, taking care not to show my teeth, even with SC allies. "As well as you, I'm Elias Mayer, and you are Cyber. I became diplomat because of you, you know. You stopped at nothing to protect your people, and never gave up on peace. It must have seemed impossible to you, but you didn't, actually. You were one of my heroes growing up, sir. It made my year to travel with you." "No need to call me Sir Cyber. We humans have a saying, never meet your heroes." "You won't disappoint me, Mr. Elias. The fact that you're even worried about that shows that you're exactly who I thought you were. It's me who should be concerned about not living up to your legacy." I waved a hand dismissively. "Nonsense. Aren't Sulian diplomats the ones who persuaded lots of former neutral parties back during the war? Including the Dirtian, who ran what was then known as the Dirtian Shield. They were very rude and unpleasant at first. You're lucky that you met Corrigan and not their first diplomats." Cyber tossed her antlerless head, revealing the black and white stripes continuing down her neck. "Sulians are making calls almost non-stop, all because we wanted to stand with our Iftali kin, finding out that they used to be omnivores. We wouldn't turn on them, so why should we condemn you? We had to get allies and stop the Federation." "You were the unsung heroes of that, Cyber. Getting the shield on our side is what turned the Battle of Alpha, not to mention that your efforts brought in dozens of our SC allies. Diplomacy won in the war as much as guns, and it's a shame Sulian's contributions have been overlooked. Clearly they haven't been forgotten since we were invited on your expedition. It's time to soften up the shield and neutrals all over again, since we wrote the manual on how to do it the first time. Plus, who I am might lower their guard." "Who are you exactly?" I asked, as I ambled towards the waiting shuttle. "Should I be concerned? The kind of thing that might lower the shield's guard could be a 5-time exterminator of the month." "No, silly!" Cyber chuckled, headbutting me playfully. I hoped she hadn't hurt herself, not expecting the immovable metal skeleton beneath the faux flesh. "My dad is Vanla, the talk show host, one of the most famous in the Federation. Before the war, he was popular with humans too, by the end, because of a few clips. I shouldn't have expected you to know, since you weren't alive when he would have been known on Earth. So you're hoping that you can unruffle some feathers when S.H.I.E.L.D. diplomats have that moment of, oh, you're Vendor's kid. That's not bad play, having a bit of an inroads with them. But if he became popular with humans, would they hold that against him? Well, no, long story. But his old shows remain very popular in no predators allowed territory. Let's just say Dad was very critical of you at first, and they liked the jokes he made at your expense. There's some wild conspiracies out there, like the humans coerced him into siding with them once they got to S.H.I.E.L.D. You're predators that know the value of propaganda, after all. It couldn't be further from the truth. What is the truth, Seba? The studio told him not to bring on his first human guest due to liability concerns. The audience usually stamps their hooves and cheers to welcome celebrity visitors, but there were mostly gasps and panic when a real-life predator came out. A lot of the live spectators fled, almost stampeding. Dan told me he felt sick sitting across from Manny. I think the guy's name was, during that first interview. But he covered it up well, asking fluff questions and icebreakers like with anyone else. I'm old enough to remember Manny Griffin. Is that why Vendor's show caught on with the humans? Because he welcomed our celebrities? Sibba chuckled. Not quite. Dad became an internet sensation here because he kept insulting you, even after his opinion on you turned. One of the most famous clips is him screaming at the camera, "What even is an appendix?" before launching into a lengthy tirade. There was another where he said that mascot costumes were more horrifying than your actual faces. Also the time where he held up a picture of a Terran in a ski mask and said that they were doing Phone's visor laws wrong. Nobody wants to see your eyes. Haven't you got the message? Okay, that's actually pretty funny, I chuckled. I'll have to look this up on the ride over. That was relentless. Instead of backtracking after the omnivore reveal, he just doubled down and went after you harder. People thought that he had a death wish, but it seems humans overall found it quite hilarious. We like to laugh at ourselves. Sometimes that's all you can do. Cyber bobbed her head enthusiastically. That's right. Dad retired a few years ago, but I learned a lot from him. The way Host Vendel would disarm people is useful for diplomacy. I wound up talking to strangers for a living, just the same as him. From what I've seen so far, we're all better for it. I'm glad to have you with me on this mission. Your father should be proud. The Surian threw her head back, prancing ahead of me excitedly. I smiled in spite of myself, letting myself enjoy the fact that interacting with friendly aliens was now part of humanity's existence. Cyber looked up at me, which had warmed me to my core to hear, so the last thing I wanted was to let her down. I couldn't afford to be a shell of myself, failing to live up to the legacy the real Elias had created with his final breath. It was time to move the needle of progress forward, and to find a way to get the S.H.I.E.L.D. to help out with a galaxy-spanning war once again. End of chapter. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vidmori, 050, Dragzoon W.R.E, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.